Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kathleen and I'm a dyslexic here to help other dyslexics and their parents. Today we are going to be talking all about IEPs or Individualized Education Programs. Sometimes they're also referred to Individualized Education Plans. So if this is something you need more information about or want more information about, then let's get into this video. Okay, let's get into this. So first off, let me give you a little bit of background information. I had an IEP when I was in public school, and I've also been a special education teacher. So I have written my share of IEPs in different environmental settings. So in different settings in the classroom, I have implemented those IEPs. I have done progress reports on those IEPs. I have you name it, I have done it with IEPs, and I just wanted to share a little bit more information with parents about IEPs. So that is what this video is. So let's get started. So the first thing is, what is an IEP? It is an individualized education program specifically designed for the student or your child. So this is an individualized plan that is developed for them based on their unique needs. So you're probably thinking, how do I get this for my child? Well, they have to go through a specific evaluation process within the school. They have to be evaluated in the school. So you either request that they have this done, or the school requests that this evaluation take place. Either one of them has to be done. And if you are requesting an evaluation, it needs to be in writing. If you want more information about the evaluation process, you are in luck. I have a free evaluation guide that I cannot wait to share with you. And it is jam-packed full of information about the evaluation process, what questions to ask, what you should do. And so I would love for you to grab that. So go ahead and go to dyslexiclabs.com, sign up, and put your name and your email in the form, and that guide will be in your inbox. It is chock full of information, and it is all there for you, and it's free. Go ahead and sign up. So back to our video. Today, we are talking about the IEP. So after the evaluation process and they are found eligible, they get what we call an IEP, an Individualized Education Program, sometimes referred to as an Individualized Education Plan. So IEPs are governed by the law IDEA, or IDEA 2014, and it was reauthorized, and it comes from a different one. And so it is very important to understand where the IEPs come from and what drives them. And it is a federal law, the IDEA law. So the one problem with this is that it does create a unique plan for the child based on their unique abilities. That's great. But the one drawback to this is the law says it is an appropriate education, and that is left up to interpretation. And so sometimes what the public school considers an appropriate education and what the parents consider an appropriate education do not mix or match. And so this is where we start to see things. But then the other thing, and that this opens up for a lot of interpretation, is in there it says the unique needs of the students. And so lots of parents have found ways, advocates have found ways to argue that this meets the unique needs of the child. So there are two main purposes behind an IEP, and that is to set goals to help children with their unique needs and to set where those services are being received. So that is a little bit of the history behind the IEP. Now I'm going to break down the 7 different parts of an IEP. Okay, so this is going to be a quick overview of the 7 parts of an IEP. The first one, and you always start the IEP meeting with this, is going over the qualifications. So how did this child qualify? What out of the 13 set out in IDEA, which umbrella did they qualify under? You're not going to have a specific diagnosis. You are just going to have an umbrella. So if your child has dyslexia, it's going to be a specific learning disability. They're not going to label it as dyslexia. So you're going to see a specific learning disability. It is the same thing. It's just not giving a proper name because schools do not give out diagnosis. They give an evaluation to see if you qualify. So that is the first thing that happens in an IEP and an IEP meeting. We talk about the qualifications. The next one is the PLAF. This is called so many different things, but basically it breaks down to it's the present levels of academic performance. It's also called the present level of performance. It's called so many different things. But basically what it is it is talking about the child's strengths and weaknesses. So it is drawn out. So where they're not making as much progress in school, where they're behind their classmates, where things are going on. And so with this, sometimes for parents, it's very hard to read this because it's a lot of information talking about what your child cannot do compared to everybody else. But with the PLAF, every area that they see as they're not caught up with their classmates or they're not making the progress they need or the disadvantages, there's going to be a goal later on in the IEP. So present levels are talking about the strengths and the weaknesses of the child or the student. The next one is the goals. So for every one of those weaknesses, you're going to have a goal. So goals are what the child is working on individually. So goals have to be measurable, obtainable, and they also have to say who is going to be doing this goal. So with goals, it's very important to understand that this is what the child is going to be working on. So this is one of the big parts of the IEP. And it is very important that you have these goals ahead of time so you know if you agree with them or if you disagree with them. So make sure that you get a copy of the goals ahead of time. These are very unique to the child, and then they are also worked on a regular, consistent basis to help the child close the gaps. And you are given progress reports, whatever the IEP says. Some of them say every 4 weeks, some of them say every 6 weeks, some of them say concurrent with the report card. Whatever it is, that is when you're going to receive that IEP. And it's very important to monitor the progress and make sure that your student is making progress on this goal, because if they're not, you need a new plan and you need to go back to the IEP table and come up with a new plan. So after the goals, the next big section in an IEP is accommodations. So this is helping the child get access to what they need to help them to learn. So getting access with this could be anything. It could be testing accommodations where the questions are read out loud. It could be a small group. It could be anything. It could also list out assistive technology. So like when it's time to go to reading corner or silent reading, the other students are reading a book where your child is listening to a book on tape. So they're still doing the same thing, they're just doing it in a different way. So accommodations make it easier to access the curriculum that they are currently in. And so those are very important. It's also very important not to have 500 accommodations because who can keep up with those? So pick just a few that you and the teachers agree on would be best for the child. Work with those accommodations and make them work for your child. If they're not working, then get rid of them and come up with a different one. But but less is more here with this. So your child learns what accommodations they have and they can ask for them and they can self-advocate for themselves. But when you have a huge list, they're not going to be able to self-advocate or remember all of them. But if you pick a few key ones that you know are going to work for the child, then this ends up helping so much more. The next part is testing. So if your child is 3rd grade or above, you're going to be talking about testing. You're going to be talking about district testing, and you're going to be talking about state testing, that state testing at the end of the year. I know I've been reading a lot that people are opting out of testing because it just creates so much stress and anxiety, and that sometimes is an option, sometimes it's not. And testing is very hard. But with the testing and the fact that they qualify for an IEP and have one, they can have specific testing accommodations. So some of the most common ones are small group testing, having the questions read aloud. Some states do this, some states don't, so you need to do the research to know if your child does that, but also make sure that they have the goals in place for that, because I know in the 2 states that I've taught in Virginia and in Texas, that yes, you can get the read aloud accommodation, except for in the reading section because you're testing their reading ability. You can have that, but they have to have a goal talking about how they are working on getting caught up with reading. So like a decoding goal would be appropriate to get these accommodations, and you need to make sure that those goals are there when you're asking for those accommodations. So the ones that I always see the most are small group testing, the read aloud accommodation if they qualify for it, small group, double timed or untimed test, whichever they qualify for. And most of the time you end up seeing the same testing accommodations across the board. Then sometimes they get, when it comes to math, they can have manipulatives. They could maybe have like graphic organizers. But again, it's something that you can't just give to them during the test. It's something that they have to work with and use all year long to make it work. So the next one is another huge important part of the IEP, which is the schedule of services. So this is talking about what services they're going to be receiving, who's in charge of those services, and where those services are going to take place. So let's break this down a little bit more. So let's say they're getting individualized reading instruction. So they have 2 choices for that. They can either have that in the general ed classroom, or they can have that maybe like in the resource room. So you as a team have to decide what is best for the child. Would it be to be in a noisy general ed classroom where all of the other kids are seeing this specialized reading instruction go down, or in the resource room where it's quieter, it's easier, and the other kids are not seeing the specialized instruction that is going on? That is your choice. I know a lot of parents are just like inclusion. Yes, I understand that, but sometimes resource is a little bit easier. The kids' self-esteem goes up because their peers are not seeing all this individualized instruction. So that's one of the things that you have to consider is the child and their feelings and helping boost their confidence. So is it they like to show off? Well, then maybe inclusion's the best. Are they more of a private person and they don't want everybody knowing what's going on? Then resource might be better. And then it also breaks down exactly how many minutes. So they can either break it down by day or they can break it down by week. But I've learned that most of the time it's broken down by week in case something comes up, like school pictures. Do you really want your child missing school pictures because they are in the resource room? Probably not. So this way it gives the whole team time to make up those minutes later on in the week so they can also be a student at the same time. So keep in mind that when they are doing the minutes, it's best to kind of put them out for a week Even with like speech pathology is actually spelled out per month. And so you just kind of have to look at that. And so it'll give a number and then it'll have a slash and it'll either say per week, per month, per day, whatever it is. So break it down into what works. And this is the second most important part is so what services they're receiving, where they are, and how long they're going to be receiving those services. Those are very, very important. Then the last part of the IEP is the recap or the notes. And so I know that somebody in the IEP most of the time is taking notes and writing down. So if you object to something or you don't agree with something, it's going to be documented in the IEP in the notes, or the deliberation is what we call it here in Texas, the deliberation area. And so that is going to be documented and it's going to be in there. Most of the time at the end of the IEP meeting, we would all sit down and review the notes, making sure that everybody agreed on what was discussed. And if there were objections, that they were documented correctly. Because if they weren't documented correctly, then sometimes it created a problem later on. So if there is an objection, make sure that it is documented that it was discussed in the IEP. So those are the 7 parts of an IEP. So we talked about what an IEP is, how people qualify for it, and the 7 steps. So I hope this helps you understand the IEP process a little bit better. I have so much more information on this on my website, and I would love for you to go check it out. And if you have any questions about this, I would love to help you out. So go ahead and send me an email. The easiest way to get a hold of me is hello@dyslexiclabs.com. I'm going to go ahead and put that on the bottom here for you. So hello@dyslexiclabs.com. I love to help parents understand. If you have any questions, just go ahead and send them my way. I would love that, or leave them in the comments. In the next few weeks, I'm going to have more information about IEPs coming out, probably a deeper dive about evaluations, and more information about dyslexia. So if any of that information interests you, go ahead and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.